It's time for another CGC population report video. We're in 1989. We're going to see McFarlane. We're going to see some brand new characters that have had TV shows, have had movies, and one independent book written by somebody who was nominated for an Oscar. All this and more coming up on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hello, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe. Check out the description of this video for links to eBay store, email, whatnot, and Instagram. On Saturday, November 1st, I'm going to be set up at the Bronx Comic Show that's run by Lone Wolf Comics and Streetside Anthony. The information is in the flyer over here, so if you have the chance, I think I have the link to the tickets in the description. Check it out. Should be a fun show. So, yeah, there'll be some really cool vendors there. A lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to do the CGC population report for 1989. We've been doing this. This is now the 56th installment. Been doing this for over a year. And we like to point out some of the historic aspects and some of the connections that these characters have. Now, sometimes I kind of glance over things because we've dealt with those characters before. I'm not going to talk about a whole lot about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because we talked about when they first appeared on the list. So you can go back and look at any of the videos from any of the other years to see which books were most submitted to CGC. It used to be the census report. Now it's census count. Now it's a population report. Regardless, it gives us an idea of the books that collectors want to get slabbed. A lot of that does have to do with the value of the books. We don't really talk about value in these videos, although there is an undercurrent of it, right? A book that is worth more is going to be more likely to be submitted, and it's going to be more collectible, more sought after. We do the top 10 books. Most submissions, blue labels only. We don't get into yellow and, green and purple. Yellow is going to be the most common at this point in time. We also do the top 10 for both Marvel and DC, as well as major keys, books of note, books of high value, right? We don't talk about what the value is, but if they're very valuable because they're sought after and they're harder to find, that the demand much outpaces the supply, we'll mention those. And of course, we'll also look at the top book from most publishers. I'm kind of cutting it off, not really going so much into the ones that have like one book submitted, but I kind of go through the list using cgcdata.com. Anything that has more than 10 copies submitted, that's the cutoff I'm using now. We have a lot of books, so let's jump into it. We're going to start with the number 10 book on the list, and that is Amazing Spider-Man 312 by Todd McFarlane, Dave Michelini story with the Green Goblin. This is one of my favorite McFarlane ASM books. It's right in the midst of this McFarlane run, and these books are very popular amongst collectors. There are folks that somebody just reached out to me, and I had a few of them to sell, that he's working on a run of 9/8 McFarlane ASM books. There are only, maybe 25 of them, I think. Maybe a couple more. So this comes in at number 10. It does have a total number of 2,758 copies on the population report. Let's look at number 9 on our list. And clocking at number 9 is Sensational She-Hulk number 1 by John Byrne. Interior arcs by Bob Wiacek. Now, this is the first issue of the series. You already had the Savage She-Hulk series earlier. This series ran for 60 issues. Byrne did the first several. It did continue in his tone. He did do covers for a lot of the books. And it reimagined She-Hulk kind of before Deadpool was even. This fourth wall breaking character. There's more of a humorous bent to the stories. And it does play up She-Hulk's sexiness. And there's some very sought-after cover buys in this particular run, and I'm sure we'll come across those in subsequent years. So what's interesting about this particular copy, and there are a handful of books from Marvel at this time that are the same. Some people will say they're all newsstands. That's not true. All the books have UPC codes, right? Whereas most of the books, like Amazing Spider-Man 312, has a, these have little Spider-Man for the direct edition, a barcode for the books that were sold at newsstands. But these, even the books that were direct, all have the barcode. Black Knight #1 is another one like that. Some of the, I think a lot of the Nam books were like that, but this is one. So like if you see somebody saying it's a newsie, it's not. There's no distinction between the books that were sold in the newsstands and the books that were sold direct market. This comes in with a count of 2,759. Number 8 on the list is Sandman #8 by DC/Vertigo. Vertigo was an imprint of DC Comics that dealt with more mature subject matter. Swamp Thing went over to the Vertigo line. And Neil Gaiman's Sandman, with interior art by Mike Drindenberg and Malcolm Jones III. Dave McKean did the cover. This is the first appearance of Death, who is one of the Endless, one of the siblings of Morpheus, the lead character in Sandman. And the original story is really quite heartbreaking, because Death just is there, and appears when someone has passed away, and it's like, it's time. And the character did get her own miniseries and was in the Sandman TV series that wrapped up just recently after just 2 seasons because of the claims against Neil Gaiman, the troubling claims against him, where basically these big studios don't want to funnel more money to someone who is troubling, and so their work suffers. Really, I think Sandman was probably intended to run about 5 seasons, and it wrapped up at the end of the second, much like the Good Omens, his other show on Netflix. They're just like doing a 2-hour one-shot. Sandman #8, total number of copies is 3,063. Number 7 on the list is Amazing Spider-Man 315, Todd McFarlane art, Dave Michelini story. This is the first cover appearance of Venom, but it's just this tiny little head of Venom in the corner. It really is a Hydro Man story. This is Venom returns after his first storyline around Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 300. Really, the big book is coming up. We'll talk more about it later. This has a total of 3,167 copies. We're going to an independent. The top book from Dark Horse Comics is Predator #1. First appearance of Predator in comics. Of course, the character based on the very successful 1987 film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. This was the first issue in a 4-issue limited series. Mark Verheiden did the story. Chris Warner and Sam De La Rosa did the art, and Warner did the cover. Really a great cover. It's kind of interesting to see a Dark Horse book this high on the list. And I'm not sure how many copies Dark Horse sold of this. I mean, they had to have sold quite a few for it to get, this high on the list. So this particular book comes in with a total number of 3,560 copies. Let's go to number 5 on the list, and this is Wolverine #10. First appearance of the Silver Fox. But it's basically a Sabretooth appearance. Anytime you have these early Sabretooth Wolverine battles, especially depicted on the cover, people are going to buy it. And the cover's by Bill Sienkiewicz, who is a very highly collected artist. Chris Claremont did the story, John Buscema and Sienkiewicz did the interior art on this one as well. This jumps in with a total count of 4,841. Number 4 on the list is Sandman #1. The first appearance of Morpheus, with, it says in the notes, Wesley Dodds cameo, who's the original DC Sandman, the one from 1939 that was in the Justice Society. Neil Gaiman did the story. Sam Keith and Mike Drindenberg did the art. Dave McKean did the cover. He did kind of these, kind of surreal covers. That was the hallmark of the Sandman series. Sandman did run for 75 issues, all written by Gaiman. We talked about the TV series already. This was actually the volume 2 of Sandman from DC. Jack Kirby and Joe Simon did a 7-issue series in the early 1970s. But basically the storyline here connects to DC. They kind of moved away from its connection to the DC universe later on. Basically somebody wanted to bring capture Death, who would meet in Sandman number 8, to bring his son back from death, who was killed in action in World War I. They end up imprisoning Morpheus for about 70 years. It's longer the TV series because that takes place, 30 some odd years after this comic book came out. But this is a very popular run. It kind of crossed lines into more fantasy fiction than just superheroes. But the Justice League is part of it. Metamorpho and the Element Girl or Element Woman is part of the storyline. So there are a lot of connections in addition to the Sandman from the early 70s and the Sandman from the Golden Age. This book has a total number of 5,086 copies graded. Number 3 on the list is Wolverine number 8. This is all about the cover of Wolverine as Patch, and you have the Gray Hulk. Claremont story. John Buscema did the story, the art, and the cover. It's kind of the Fix-It Hulk and the Patch Wolverine. A very popular book. But, of course, Wolverine was a huge seller at the time, so there were a lot of copies out there. Total number of copies on the population report, 5,424. Number 2 on the list is Uncanny X-Men number 244. This is the first appearance of Jubilee. Chris Claremont did the story. Mark Silvestri and Dan Green did the cover and art. Jubilee was a huge part of the X-Men animated series in the 90s, so those 90s kids really have Jubilee as a major part of their fandom. Really was how the whole story was set in motion in episode 1. Unfortunately, it's a pretty cool cover, but Jubilee's not on the cover. So that kind of hurts it in terms of first appearance. And X-Men was I still think their bestseller at the time, even with McFarlane taking over ASM. I'm not sure. Correct me in the comments. I didn't go to Comicron to try to check that. But it's a first appearance. It's one of the later first appearances of a major X-Men character. And there might be one a little bit after this, right? We'll see. Give me a couple of years. This has a total of 6,318 copies on the population report. What's number 1 on the list? Well, I think you can guess. We danced around it a little bit earlier. Coming in at number 1 is Amazing Spider-Man 316, cover art by Todd McFarlane. This is the first full cover appearance of Venom. This homage is, Flash 22? There was a cover with the Manhunter and Flash that looks like the same pose that came out earlier, but whatever. This is a very popular Venom cover, and all Venom covers really do well in this Amazing Spider-Man run. And so, yeah, the right smack dab in the McFarlane run, we know Venom. There have been some movies. There were 3 movies, right? Very popular character. This is his second story arc. This one has a total of 11,177 graded copies in a blue label. Let's go outside the top 10. Let's go to number 11, which is the 8th Marvel book on our list. And this is a book that was really popular at the height of the boom during the pandemic. It is a West Coast Avengers number 45, the homage to Avengers 57, the John Byrne cover with the first appearance of the White Vision. This, again, if you go back in time just a few years, pandemic, WandaVision's coming out. People are, the prices are going crazy. People are speculating on everything. So once we got a colorless version of Vision, this book went bananas. I mean, this was pretty much a dollar bin book. And you can see on the notes, it doesn't, this is a very recent submission. The notes don't say anything about White Vision or colorless Vision, whichever way you prefer to refer to them. But we're getting the new series that was really for the first time confirmed, I guess, at New York Comic Con that we are getting the Vision Quest series that's going to take the character, the actual body of the android Vision, as he tries to reclaim the memories that he had when he was imbued with the Mind Stone. So people are looking forward to that. That's coming out in 2026. I don't think they have a firm release date yet. But this book, again, went bananas. I'm surprised there are this small a number of copies that have been submitted, because this was a comic boom darling. 2,539. Number 12 on the list is Amazing Spider-Man 317. This is like the third issue of this Venom story arc. It's a Venom cover by Todd McFarlane. 2,455 copies. The 10th Marvel book is Punisher War Journal number 6. First meeting of Punisher and Wolverine. Cover art by Jim Lee. Carl Potts did the story. It's a two-parter. This is the first of the two, so it is worth a little bit more, is a little more collectible. And it is a Jim Lee cover. Will we ever see Punisher and Wolverine in the MCU? It might be a little bit of a stretch, but who knows? I don't think that's really important. I mean, maybe they spike the book for a minute, but I think, just the crossover of two very popular characters and the Jim Lee art is going to drive this. 2,177 copies. Let's run out some DC books. There are only 2 in the top 10, so we have 8 more to go. Third DC book on the list is Batman 429. This is the 4th chapter in the Death in the Family storyline, where Robin is killed by Joker, Jason Todd. Jason did get better. All 3 of the first 3 parts of this storyline were 1988 books, so they were on last week's episode in the 88 list. These books are tough because of all of that black on the cover. But you have these Mike Mignola covers with Jim Starlin did the story and Jim Aparo. And Mike DiCarlo did the art. 1,902 copies. 4th DC book on the list is Batman number 442. George Perez cover. Wolfman did the story. Aparo and DiCarlo did the art. This is the first appearance of Tim Drake as Robin. So the third Robin after Dick Grayson, or into continuity Robin, and Jason Todd. We get Tim Drake. He was Robin for quite a while, up until about 2009. So really a great cover by Perez. This has 1,786 copies. The next book on the list is Batman 436. This is the first appearance of Tim Drake. It is the Batman Year 3 storyline, issue number 1, where it does tell the story of Robin, the Dick Grayson Robin, who at this point in time is now Nightwing, but also introduces Tim Drake as a kid who discovers who Batman is and kind of inserts himself into the Bat family. This book has a total count of 1,568. The 6th DC book on the list is Sandman number 4 by Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith, Mike Drindenberg, Dave McKean cover. This is the first appearance of Lucifer Morningstar, essentially the devil. Really got his own series, Lucifer, for a while. And there are a number of keys in the early Sandman. They're introducing Gaiman introduced a lot of new characters or reinterpreted characters. This is one of the big ones. There are a total of 1,328. Let's go to some indie. We're going to Archie Publications. Their top book is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures number 1. Volume 2. This is the ongoing series that ran for 72 issues. It was based on the animated TV series. There was a 3-issue miniseries that came out in 1988. Christy Marks and Dave Wise did the story, and Dave Garcia did the art. But Eastman and Laird did do the cover. And there are a couple of different versions of this issue number 1. In addition to, there's a newsstand, there's a Canadian price variant, all that sort of stuff. It's really interesting how Archie, and this is not the last time we'll see this, grab these properties that ended up becoming immensely popular and probably saved the company. There fewer and fewer readers were really grabbing Betty and Veronica and, Jughead or whatever. I don't even know what titles were coming out at this time. But yeah, this really helped the company. 1,327. Now, 1989. What happened for DC in 1989? The Batman movie, right? Batman's very popular here. Batman's always popular, but our 7th book on the list from DC is Batman, the official motion picture adaptation. This is the prestige format. This was a square bound, as was the non-prestige format, the regular format, which I think also had a newsstand. But this is a glossy cardstock cover. The other one was just a regular glossy, cover like any other cover from 1989. Jerry Ordway did the art. Denny O'Neil did the story. Ordway depicting a very much Jack Nicholson Joker. That's easy to spot. And also Michael Keaton Batman and Kim Basinger, Vicky Vale, and so on and so forth. This really reestablished film. I mean, you had the Superman series, which started out great in 1978. You had part 2, and then part 3 was in. Part 4 was and superhero movies weren't really something that was common at the time. That would take another 20 years for that to take hold. So Batman was really, everybody remembered Adam West and the campy version from the 60s, which of course is very close to my heart. West was like campaigning to re-up his role here, even though, gosh, how old would he have been? This would have been 23. He would have been about my age. The age I am now, not the age I was in 1989. But when we share a birthday, Adam and West and I had the same birthday. At any rate, this has a total of 1,066 copies on the population report. Let's go to another big property that led to the movies and another publisher. This is from Caliber Press. It is Caliber Presents #1. Tim Vigil and James O'Barr did stories and art. Vigil did the cover, and this is the first appearance of The Crow. This is an incredibly expensive book. It's a harder book to find, even though it does pop up this high on the list. I mean, that's because they're much higher, I would guess a much higher percentage of these books graded than even Amazing Spider-Man 316. Also, this dark cover makes it a little bit more difficult to get in high grade, easier to pick up ticks. 1,059 copies in the census. We're going to stay in this vein with our next book, which is The Crow #1 by James O'Barr. This is the first full story of The Crow. It's a 4-issue miniseries. This was adapted into the 1994 film with Brandon Lee. There were sequels. There was a TV series. But an incredibly popular character amongst a group of collectors. People really, want these early Crow books because they're books that are more modern, but also, they're more of a search, right? Like if you are a collector and you got your, McFarlane keys from ASM, and you get New Mutants 98, because those books are fairly easy to find. Crow is very expensive and more difficult to find. There was also a movie that came out last year with Bill Skarsgård that did not do well. It had like 22% on Rotten Tomatoes and grossed just $24.1 million worldwide. So that was kind of a bust and a disappointment for Crow fans. Crow fans were looking for something to reinvigorate the series. The values of the book suffered a little bit, but still, it's a hard-to-find book. It is a very popular cult classic, and it has 994 copies on the population report. We're going back to DC, and the next book is Detective Comics #608, The First Appearance of Anarchy. Alan Grant did the story. Norm Brayfogle did the cover and the art. Anarchy did get his own series. This is quite an undervalued book. You could probably get a high-grade raw of this for $5. It clocks in with a total of 668 copies. Ninth DC book on the list is Sandman #2. This doesn't have any first appearances of brand new characters, but it has Cain and Abel, who are reintroduced. They were part of DC lore as the narrators of House of Mystery and House of Secrets, and of course they're based on the biblical characters Cain and Abel. So this was, again, Gaiman bringing in some elements of DC lore into the Sandman series. 650 copies in the census. The next book on the list from Dark Horse, this is Predator #1, the second print. So you have to be careful. There are two prints, and there's nothing evident on the cover between the two. You have to look at the indicia to see that this is the second print. Still holds a good amount of value. This has 610 copies on the census. The 10th DC book on the list is Huntress #1. Joey Calaveri story, Joe Staten and Bruce Patterson art. This is the first appearance of the new Huntress. I think it's the third Huntress. Helena Bertinelli, who bears very much a visual resemblance to the second Huntress, who was Helena Wayne, the daughter of the Earth 2 Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle in the comics, and was a member of the Justice Society of America. But after Crisis on Infinite Earths, there was no Earth 2, there was no Golden Age Batman or Catwoman, so there was no Huntress. So DC brought this is a pretty cool character in her own right. Of course, I always missed Helena Wayne after the fact. This was a miniseries, a 4-issue miniseries. She did very shortly thereafter get an ongoing series. And this particular book clocks in with 607 copies on the census. The next book on the list, we're going to go back to Caliber Press, and it is The Crow #2, James O'Barr story and art. Again, I said this is a 4-issue limited series, so issue number 2 has 477 copies on the census. Our next book is from CFD Publications. This is Cry for Dawn #1, the first appearance of Dawn. Joseph Linzer and Joseph Monks did the stories, and Joseph Michael Lisner, I guess that did the cover and the art. A horror character, good girl art, has had comics from different publishers over the years, has remained pretty popular. The first series only ran for 9 issues. This clocks in with 418 copies on the census. Top book for Mirage. Now, we already covered the Turtles, but this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #7, the second printing. Eastman and Laird. Although Richard Corbin and Jim Lawson contributed to the artwork on the interior, this ends up with 383 copies on the population report. The next book on the list is back to Caliber, back to The Crow, issue number 3, 332 copies. The top book from Epic, which was an imprint of Marvel, it says, we'll say Marvel/Epic Comics. This is Silver Surfer Limited Series #2. It's a 2-issue limited series. Stan Lee did the story, and Mobius did the artwork. For some reason, #2 has more copies than #1. On the census, this has 319. From Eclipse Comics is Hobbit #1 by Chuck Dixon and David Wenzel. This is an adaptation of the novel by J.R.R. Tolkien, his 1937 novel, which, of course, had a connection to the Lord of the Rings novel, and, that became a big movie franchise. The Hobbit had its own movie franchise. This clocks in with 270 copies. Up next from 3D Zone is 3D Zone #16. It has a Dave Stevens cover. Very much a good girl cover. For some reason, these girls are, flying airplanes with almost no clothes on. Or maybe space, I don't know. But it's a very popular Dave Stevens cover. We talked about Dave Stevens in the past, the whole documentary that he got, and the popularity of his work. The popularity of Dave Stevens' book really spiked about a year or two ago. They've calmed down since then, but they're still on demand by collectors, especially in high grade. 265 copies. Our next book is from North Star Publishing. It is Faust #1 by Dave Quinn and Tim Vigil. This is a very adult-themed, very, very violent superhero deconstruction story. Faust had appeared previously. This particular title ran for 15 issues. I did not realize this, but there was a film of Faust in 2000, which was an English language film, but it was produced and released in Spain. I may have to look for that. The total number of copies are 203. Our next book is from Nintendo of America. It is Nintendo Power #4. It is the first Zelda cover. More of a magazine than a comic book, but it still is listed in comic book databases. This has 120 copies. Our next book. And this was what I was talking about in the tease, that we have a book that's written by an Academy Award nominee. Who is that? The book in question is from Fantagraphics Books. It is 8-Ball #1 by Daniel Close. He had finished his Lloyd Llewellyn series, and then 8-Ball was more of an anthology. He had kind of this really kind of almost like late 50s beatnik aesthetic to his artwork and storytelling. Certainly influenced by underground artists like R. Crumb. Eightball ran for 23 issues. The later issues were weird sized, so they're hard to store all. You can't put them in a long box. Like the last one was like treasury sized. And issues number 11 through 18 included the Ghost World story that was later put into its graphic novel and became a film in 2001, which Close co-wrote the story for and was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Academy Awards. Film directed by Terry Zwigoff, starring Steve Buscemi, Scarlett Johansson. Highly recommended. Check it out. And check out Eightball, too. I just picked up an issue number 2. I think I might have the run complete, but I'm not sure because those oversized books are somewhere else from my collection from, 30 some odd years ago. 102 copies. The next book is the top book from Comico. Speaking of Dave Stevens, this is Rocketeer Adventure Magazine, number 2. Backup story by Michael William Kaluta. Of course, Rocketeer, Dave Stevens outlining the story here that eventually became the Disney movie. There are 93 copies, which ties it with the second printing of Cry for Dawn number 1, which does have a different cover. There are also 93 copies. The top book from Malibu/Eternity is Out of This World number 1, which has a Bruce Timm cover. So, Out of This World reprinted in black and white stories, mostly science fiction stories from early 1950s Avon books. This is all about the Bruce Timm cover. He has a very cartoony style, but also very fine line work, kind of reminiscent of Stevens. You probably know him best for his work on Batman the Animated Series and their follow-ups, Superman, the Justice League, etc. But he had gotten his start in animation, filmation, working on shows like He-Man, She-Ra, and Flash Gordon. Don Bluth hired him to do Secret of NIMH, so he was in the animation vein, but he was also dabbling in drawing comic books, and he did some covers. His covers are very sought after, obviously including this one. There are 89 copies on the population report. The next book is Sandman number 8, the editorial edition, or the editorial variant. This has an editorial by DC editor-in-chief Karen Berger, which makes it different than the other number 8s. And there are 86 of these on the Pop Report. The top book from Now Comics is Green Hornet number 1. Ron Fortier, Jeff Butler, Dave Mowry did the art, and a cover by Jim Steranko. The Green Hornet was originally a radio program. Premiered January 31st, 1936. It was created by George W. Trendle and Fran Stryker. And there was a connection between him and the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger was either his great-great-grandfather's great-great-uncle, because both of them had the last name Reed. But there were movie serials, there were comic books. There was a TV series in the mid-'60s that crossed over with Batman for a couple of episodes. That starred Van Williams and Bruce Lee as his valet Kato. Seth Rogen did a movie a few years ago. So Now owned the rights. They put out a lot of Green Hornet. And I'll be honest with you, these types of books sell well on the initial market because there are people that like these characters, old school collectors. I might be one of them myself. So, I mean, like Conan sells well and Dick Tracy. So a lot of these books, when they're reinterpreted so well. So there's a lot of Green Hornet. This title ran for 14 issues. There was another Now Comics title. There are 70 of them of these on the census. The top book from Revolutionary Comics is Rock and Roll Comics number 1. Todd Lord did the story. Larry Nadolsky did the art. So this is a profile of Guns N' Roses. This particular title ran for, I think it was 65 issues, profiling different recording artists: Metallica, Bon Jovi, Kiss, Janis Joplin, David Bowie. Each issue a different biography, essentially. 56 copies. Top book from Blackthorne is Blackthorne 3D series number 75. This is based on the Michael Jackson movie Moonwalker. Now, interestingly, for whatever reason, it was released theatrically overseas, but never released theatrically in America. Went directly to VHS. But the connection to Michael Jackson, despite the controversies that have been surrounded him for years, still quite popular. And it does come with its 3D glasses. This has a total of 54 copies on the population report. Let's keep going. Up next, the top book from New England Comics is The Tick number 4. We talked about The Tick in the last couple of episodes. Ben Edlund, this is entirely his. Initially, The Tick was the mascot for New England Comics, which was a chain of comic book stores in New England. And then they created the character, very popular, couple TV series, 41 copies. The next book from Aircel Comics is Walking Dead number 1. No, not that one. Not the one with Rick and Michonne and all of them and Carl. This is a 4-issue series from Aircel, which was for adults, very violent in this. Jim Somerville did the story, cover, and art. This has 41 copies on the population report. Top book from Eternity is Spicy Tales, number 11. This is another pre-code reprint book with a cover by Bruce Timm of a very scantily clad woman tied up. 39 copies on the census. The top book from Innovation is Legends of the Stargazers, number 1. Cover by Adam Hughes, popular cover artist. $36 copies on the population report. Top book from Gladstone. We talked about before, they held the Disney rights for comic books at this time. Walt Disney's Uncle Scrooge Adventures, number 14. Don Rosa, story, cover, and art. 30 copies. Top book from Last Gasp is Cherry, number 8. Larry Welch, story, cover, and art. The Wizard of Oz parody. Cherry, previously known as, the title is Cherry Pop-Tart. Very adult. 27 copies on the census. The top book from Bleak House Publishing is Greed, number 6. This is a magazine. Flaming Carrot story. Bob Burton tells all. But what is special about this is the first appearance of Milk and Cheese by Evan Dorkin. Hard to find. Easy to overlook. There are 25 copies on the population report. The next book is up next is, this is an interesting one. This is the top book from Ralston Purina. That's right, Ralston Purina Company. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Serial Mini Comics number 1. So, included in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles serial. Eastman and Laird have done very well financially by owning the rights to these characters. You got a cartoon the kids love. Let's sell some breakfast cereal. There were these inserts. They were trading card sized, and it was like one panel per page. There were 3 issues. Now, for me, I always remember Ralston Purina as like producing pet food, not breakfast cereal. They weren't Kellogg's, they weren't General Mills, but they did the Turtles cereal. I don't know how much different it tasted than their dog food. 22 copies on the population report. Our next book is the top book from Fantico Enterprises. It is Gore Shriek number 6.5. Not approved for store sale. I don't know much about this particular book. Gore Shriek ran for 6 issues. This was 6.5. It's smaller than a comic book. Was it a promotional giveaway of some sort? It was produced exclusively for Gore Shriek fans. Available only from artists or from Fantico Enterprises. No copies were available wholesale. So, yeah. And it was the last issue in the series. There have managed to turn up on the population report a total of 20 copies. Our top book from EC is Mad, issue number 285, with a wrestling cover with Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, who's that, Ric Flair? And it's probably Alfred E. Newman's feet. Or maybe it's Andy Kaufman. 16 copies. The top book from First Comics is Sable number 19. Marv Wolfman did the story, Bill Jaska did the art, but what makes this book popular is that Adam Hughes did the cover. And it's a good girl cover. This originally was Mike Grell's John Sable Freelance. Then you had the Sable title. Who played him in the TV show? Was it Rick Springfield? I think it was, right? Anyway, this has 14 copies in the population report, which ties it with the top book from Kitchen Sink Press, which is Xenozoic Tales, number 8 by Mark Schultz. Also 14 copies on the census. Our next book is the top book from Slave Labor. It's Graphique Musique, number 1. That's about all I know. 13 copies on the census. That ties it with the top book from Double Diamond Press, which is Hepcats number 1. Created by Martin Wagner. Basically, he had published some strips when he was in college at the University of Texas at Austin in the student newspaper. Then he self-published, I think it was 12 issues of Hepcats, which was an anthropomorphic animal's tale about 4 college buddies. And there are 13 copies on the census. The next book on our list is from Piranha Press. Which was an imprint of DC Comics. This is Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children, number 1, by Dave Lupare, and Dan Sweetman did the cover and art. So DC was trying to hook more into the kind of experimental independent comic market. So they did their own imprint, Piranha Press, which ran from 89 to 94. And they did bring in, people like Kyle Baker and William Messner Loebs and some other folks to do some interesting books that were more experimental. And it was kind of kudos to DC for doing that. This Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children was an anthology book that ran for 30 issues. Issue number 1 has 12 copies on the census. The top book from Malibu Comics is Torrid Affairs number 2. So there are actually 2 covers to this that both have the same number of copies on the census. The cover is co-drawn, co-credited to Matt Baker and Bruce Timm. So what Bruce Timm did was he kind of updated some Matt Baker art for the cover. And then he did a variant cover in which the young lady in the foreground is wearing a sheer top. So you can see a lot more. Both copies, the regular and the variant, have 11 copies of the population report. The top book from Fictioneer Books is Dave Anthony Kraft's Comics Interview number 68, which has this Mark Nelson cover of Aliens. This was a fanzine, fan magazine that was pretty prominent back in the day, and I think this Alien cover drives the interest in it. 10 copies in the population report, which ties it with the top book from Stratman Marketing, which is Hanna-Barbera Presents Flintstones Fun Book number 11. These were giveaways at Denny's where there were puzzles and games and, mazes and, probably crossword puzzles and word searches and all that crazy stuff. Amazingly, I don't know why, there are 10 copies on the population report. Our next book is the top book from Continuity Comics. It is issue number 2 of Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. Neil Adams cover. He also partially did the story, and the art is the last issue. It's based on a toy line, which also became a syndicated TV series. We talked about that in last week's episode. 7 copies. There's a tie for our top book from Aardvark Vanaheim. It is Cerebus Bi-Weekly number 17 and Cerebus Bi-Weekly number 18, which is a reprint of the original Cerebus numbers 17 and 18, both of these with 7 copies. Our next book is from Ripoff Press, which is best known for Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. This is Doll number 1, which is basically an X-rated porno. Kind of in the Cherry Pop-Tart vein by Gary Colwell. I guess they're making some sort of adultish movie, and you could look at the faces. I could see a Crumb influence in these characters. Definitely an underground influence. There are 6 copies of this. The next book we have is from Thoughts and Images. It is Command Review Volume 3. This was the 3rd issue and final issue of the series. It reprints Albedo numbers 9 through 13. I guess it's a little bit thicker book. There are 5 copies of this. Coming in at the next book is there's a big old tie here from Harvey Picar is American Splendor number 14. Also cover featuring his David Letterman exploitation issue. They had their back and forth. I think you can find the Picar interviews on YouTube for Letterman. They're kind of funny, but I'd like to get Picar's side of the story. 4 copies on the population report. Which ties it with the top book from Comics World Corp, which is Comics Scene number 9. You get Michael Keaton photo as Batman in the upper left-hand corner. You get a Punisher cover. 4 copies. From Deadline Publication is Deadline number 4. Tank Girl on the cover. 4 copies. From Antarctic Press's Mangazine Volume 2, number 1. 80 pages, all no ads. Definitely manga influence from Japan. 4 copies. From Stern and Coat Publishing is Zen Intergalactic Ninja number 5. We talked about this in the last couple of episodes, this particular title. 4 copies. The top book from Vortex Comics is Black Kiss number 11. Adult theme book by Howard Chaykin. 2 copies. From Continuum Comics is Continuum Presents number 2. I think it's pronounced Continuum. Could be because it has the umlaut on the U at the end there. 2 copies. Tie for the top book from Harvey. Friendly Ghost Casper number 246. There are only, I think, maybe about 5 issues left of this. And Richie Rich number 239. 2 copies. Also, from HM Communications is Heavy Metal, Volume 13, number 2. You have an Olivia cover, 2 copies. From top book from Triad is the Illustrated Honeymooners, Volume 2, number 1, or just Honeymooners number 10, depending on how you look at it. That has 1 copy. And that's going to do it for the 1989 list. What did you think? How many do you have? How many of these do I own? A lot of people put in the comments how many they own, and I never address that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I have most of the Marvel and DC. That's why. 21, 22, 23. I don't have a lot of these smaller ones. 24. I think I have those two. 26, 27. I think I have 27 of these books. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you appreciate it, you can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.